When I packed up my things and moved to a new city, I wasn't looking for love. I had just turned 28, recently ended a long-term relationship, and was emotionally drained. I accepted a new job opportunity in Portland, Oregon, leaving behind everything familiar in Chicago. All I needed was a quiet space, some peace, and a fresh start. I found an ad online for a cozy guest house behind a charming craftsman-style home in a quiet neighborhood near Mount Tabor Park. The pictures looked perfect: exposed beams, a small patio, lots of light, and best of all, within my budget. The listing had been posted by someone named Daniel Harper, and though there weren't many personal details in the description, the tone was warm and welcoming. When I arrived for the viewing, I was nervous but hopeful. I knocked on the main house door, and when it opened, I came face to face with Daniel himself. He was in his mid-30s, probably 35 or 36, tall, with deep brown eyes and a calm smile that immediately put me at ease. He was wearing a flannel shirt and jeans, and his dog, a golden retriever named Max, stood by his side, wagging his tail. "You must be Olivia," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Daniel. Welcome." I smiled, shook his hand, and stepped inside as he guided me through the main house to the backyard. "This way," he said. "The guest house is back here. It's fully detached, with its own entrance and kitchen, so you'll have total privacy." The moment I walked into the guest house, I knew it was where I wanted to live. It had a peaceful, almost magical atmosphere, with hardwood floors, white curtains swaying gently in the breeze, and the scent of fresh cedar lingering in the air. I looked around, nodded, and said, "I'll take it." He seemed surprised. "Just like that?" I laughed. "Just like that." I moved in a week later with only a few suitcases, a coffee maker, and my record player. Daniel lived in the main house with Max, and though we only shared a backyard, we bumped into each other often. Sometimes we'd chat while he watered his plants or played fetch with Max. Other times, I'd see him through the kitchen window, cooking dinner or reading a book on his porch swing. At first, I kept my distance. I was still healing. But slowly, the conversations grew longer. One evening, I found myself sitting on the steps of my patio while Daniel grilled burgers nearby. He looked over and asked, "You hungry?" I was, and I nodded. "Sure, if you don't mind sharing." That night, we sat under string lights he'd hung between the trees, sharing food and laughter. We talked about everything: our favorite movies, our families, and the odd twists life had taken to bring us where we were. He told me he used to be an architect but had recently switched to landscape design to work closer to home. I shared that I was working in community outreach and trying to rebuild my confidence after a bad breakup. He listened without judgment, and I found myself relaxing in his presence. It wasn't long before these casual meals became routine. Sometimes we drink tea together on rainy nights or share a beer on the weekends. We developed a rhythm, easy, natural, and comforting. I began to look forward to seeing him, to the way he smiled when I told a bad joke, or how he always remembered how I liked my coffee. I'd catch myself staring when he wasn't looking, wondering if he noticed me in the same way I noticed him. But I never said anything. I didn't want to risk ruining the friendship we had. One Saturday in November, the city was blanketed in fog. I was curled up on the patio with a blanket and a book when Max came bounding up the steps and dropped a slobbery tennis ball at my feet. Daniel followed behind him, holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa. "You looked like you could use this," he said, handing me one. "Thanks," I replied, smiling as I took it. "You always seem to show up at the right time." He sat beside me, and for a few minutes, we listened to the quiet sounds of the neighborhood. Then he turned to me and asked, "Can I be honest with you, Olivia?" My heart skipped a beat. "Of course." "I didn't expect this," he said. "Any of this. When I posted that ad, I just wanted a tenant. I wasn't expecting to meet someone like you." I felt the warmth of the mug in my hands, but my cheeks were warmer. "I wasn't expecting this either," I whispered. He looked into my eyes, and everything around us seemed to fade. "I like you, Olivia. More than a landlord should like his renter." I laughed nervously. "I like you too, Daniel. More than a renter should like her landlord." And just like that, something shifted. From that day on, things changed between us. We didn't rush anything. We were careful, thoughtful. He was respectful, and I was cautious, afraid of getting hurt again. But he showed me day after day that he was genuine, kind, and patient. We began spending more intentional time together. We'd go on hikes with Max, cook meals side by side, and stay up late talking about our pasts and our hopes for the future. There was a quiet intimacy in the way he'd touch my hand, or how he'd bring me coffee on early mornings before work. Eventually, one snowy night in December, we kissed. It wasn't planned or dramatic. We were decorating the tree in his living room, listening to old Christmas records, when he leaned in and kissed me softly. It felt natural, like something we had been building toward all along. That kiss was the start of something beautiful. Months passed, spring came, and the trees in the backyard bloomed in full color. By then, we were no longer tiptoeing around our feelings. We were officially together, and the lines between landlord and tenant had blurred into something far more meaningful. But not everything was simple. Some friends questioned our relationship, wondering if it was wise to get involved with someone I rented from. My mother, ever the skeptic, warned me to be careful. But I trusted Daniel. He respected my independence and never tried to control me. Eventually, he offered to stop charging me rent if I wanted to move into the main house. I said no at first. I liked my space and didn't want to feel like I owed him anything. He smiled and said, "That's one of the reasons I love you. You stand on your own." Love. That word. He said it easily, but sincerely. I hadn't said it yet. Not because I didn't feel it, but because the last time I had said, "I love you," it ended with heartbreak. But Daniel was different. Slowly, he had pieced me back together without even knowing it. It was a sunny June afternoon, and we were having a picnic in the park near the reservoir. Max lay beside us, panting in the shade. I was lying back on the blanket, eyes closed, when I turned to him and said, "Daniel?" "Yeah, I love you." He didn't say anything for a moment. Then he leaned over, kissed me on the forehead, and whispered, "You have no idea how long I've waited to hear that." That summer was one of the happiest of my life. We traveled to the coast, adopted a second dog, and began designing a shared garden in the backyard. The guest house no longer felt like a separate unit. It was part of a home we were slowly building together. Eventually, we talked about the future. We didn't rush into anything, but we knew we wanted the same things: love, honesty, and a life built on shared values. A year after I first moved in, he proposed in the backyard under those same string lights where we had our first meal together. Now, as I sit on the patio of what's become out,